This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. The Indiana Pacers lose for the 12th time this season. That is awful to say, 136 to 121 to the Memphis Grizzlies. But here to talk to me about this abysmal, awful, ugly second through fourth quarter game is Derek Kramer from my Pacers blog. Derek, thanks so much for joining me and to talk about this awful team. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm a little confused. I thought, no, like they had an awesome first quarter. Didn't they just like delay the game indefinitely? Like
Yeah,
they never played those last three quarters. What are you talking about? I don't,
I
I'm a little
mean,
confused.
they had the best first quarter of the season, a season high. 45 first quarter points. They scored 23 in the second, 23 in the third, and 30 in the fourth. Now, on the flip side, they only allowed 28 points to Memphis in the first quarter. Then they allowed 34. Then they allowed 40. And then they allowed 34 again. So they got completely embarrassed once again, got completely outclassed, completely outplayed. I mean, it was just awful to see. I think that the actual numbers here are they got outscored 108 to 76 the final three quarters of tonight's game. Memphis shot 55.7% from the field. Indiana shot 41.2%. And Indiana had 15 turnovers while Memphis had just eight. It was absolutely a dominating Memphis performance after that first quarter.
The Pacers won the rebounding battle.
Oh,
Yay.
well, they usually win. That's what
They
Rick
did
Carlisle
it.
says if they win the rebounds.
No, they didn't. What happened? I don't get it. They
I
won the
mean,
rebounding battle. They didn't win the game.
well, you can win the rebounding battle, but if you give up a lot of points, I mean, that doesn't matter. I mean, if you can't stop
I
anybody, you can't stop a
know.
nosebleed, right? Like, what is going on with this team? I mean, obviously, we saw this team win three games in a row last week, and I guess it's my leading question here. They beat Washington, they beat the Pelicans without almost half their roster, and then they skate by the Portland Trailblazers on Wednesday night, get absolutely embarrassed by Detroit Friday, absolutely embarrassed by Memphis on Sunday. Was that three-game winning streak a little bit of fool's gold?
I mean, it's definitely, they got to prove that it isn't. I mean, they beat three teams that are not good, and now they're on the road where they're now 2-9. They got three more on the road. They've lost like six straight away from
Yeah.
home. Tyrese still like just can't get it going on the road. I'm sure we'll talk about him more
Mm.
later. Um, but it's just it's hard to be like super optimistic about this team. I think the one takeaway that you like will have is that Andrew Nembhard was back and looked really good and was a big reason why that first quarter went so well. And he didn't play the second half, which was the most terrible of the game, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's rough right now. They're gonna have to prove that like I mean they still haven't won a game that hasn't been a close game. Like they haven't blown out anybody. So
Mm.
even those games that they won against bad teams, they're squeaking by, like you said, against the Trailblazers. Like they're not like handling these teams that they should easily. Nothing is coming easy to this team early in the year.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think a lot of it has to do with injuries because they cannot play the style they want to play. But like you mentioned, Andrew Nembhard comes back in this game. You're excited about how everything's looking. 45 points in the first quarter. You're thinking, okay, this is what they were missing. It was that boost they needed, that secondary ball handler, that defender out there to kind of help Mathurin and Tyrese out there, and even guys like Pascal Siakam, right? You don't have to rely on Quenton Jackson to kind of be your best wing defender or guard defender on your roster who's on a two-way contract. And I hate to say it like this, like the Q Jacks we saw last week was fun. But I think that's a short fairy tale that needs to end. I don't think people
Oh,
realize, Quentin Jackson's a nice story, but he is not a solution to the problem, right? The problem is this team has to get better play from their stars. And I think we kind of saw that during that three-game home winning streak. Their stars played well. First of all, it was Tyrese Haliburton, and then it kind of followed suit with Pascal and Ben and Myles. And you're like, okay, when our stars play well, when our top guys play well, we do awesome. And in this game, it was the complete opposite, right? I would say this was a mediocre game from Pascal, just 17 points on 7 of
at
15
best.
shooting. Myles, I mean, I don't know how many times Quinn Buckner was kind of throwing him under the bus for his level of play against Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, Caitlin Cooper tweeted about it and said he's got to play bigger. And so I totally agree. I mean, he just felt like he wasn't even out there half the time. And then Tyrese, what are we doing? Only one 2-point attempt, and it came with like 4 minutes left to play in the third quarter, and he got a layup, shooting a bunch of threes again, 2 of 9 from three. It's like, what does he not realize about driving to the basket and opening up more parts of his game. So honestly, like I was just really disgusted with how the Stars carried the load after Nembhard coming back kind of helped them get out to this massive lead. And Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell were great off the bench in that first quarter.
Yeah, the Pacers, like top three players, were definitely the issue. I think, yeah, I think you're right about Quenton Jackson. Like it's a great story. He's played well. He's been needed desperately. But Ja Morant was looking at him like your uncle was looking at a Thanksgiving meal, like, I'm gonna eat today. I'm gonna eat. Like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
How-
I mean, uncle, I mean, looking like me at a Thanksgiving dinner,
Sure.
okay? I mean,
Well,
let's be honest here. Like, I'll just say this, okay? Like, I'm not trying to be mean and crap on the guys, but like Andrew Nembhard tonight was back for his eighth game of the season. I think they're 4-3 going into the game when he has played and has played for the majority of it. Now, I don't know if they include the Boston game when he didn't come back in. I'm assuming that's part of it. So maybe more like 3-3 when he's actually played significant minutes, right? But anyway, he had a season high 14 points in this game, and it all happened in the first half. It's like, how does a guy have a season high in the first half? I think Obi Toppin had a season high as well, if I'm not mistaken. But this was a season high in terms of points in a quarter. It was also a season high for points and a half. I think they were up 66-60 at halftime. And, you think a 6 point lead, like, okay, they can maybe, it's not a big lead. It's only two possessions, but still, like, they can kind of build off that. They've got some momentum going. I know Memphis is coming back, but that 6 point lead was erased in like, 90 seconds. So to me, it just felt like once again, this team is just not connected and you're wanting to see it. It's an uphill battle every day. And that's why I've said on this podcast, like from this point on moving forward, it is a game by game thing. There is no way to predict anything. This team is so inconsistent, so bad. And I don't know where else you want to start because I've got plenty of things to say, obviously, as I'm just rambling here. But it's just this team right now, they just, it's not fun to watch them.
it's not, and it's real unfortunate because that first quarter was like the most fun I've had watching this team all season, and
Yeah.
then it just immediately went to shit.
Yeah.
So I think we can focus on the big three and kind of dive into them more,
Okay.
maybe. I think Tyrese, like the first quarter, I thought he wasn't doing a lot of the scoring, but the way that the Grizzlies were guarding him, like they were face guarding him all the way down the court. Like there were times where it looked like it was like Steph Curry at Davidson, where he would just stand in the corner at half court and just let his team play 4-on-4. Except with Steph, it was like 3-on-4 because two people would be guarding him all the time. But and that kind of worked to the Pacers' advantage because they had so much space then with just four guys going 4-on-4 that they could do whatever they wanted. And it worked. Their rookie Wells was just like all over him. Like he did a fantastic job guarding Tyrese and kind of taking him out. I don't know if maybe that's why he kind of struggled to find a rhythm. And like you said, he wasn't going to the basket, so he's not getting anything going to the rim and finding easy ones there. Um, yeah, it's disappointing that 90% of his attempts came from three. Like we
Yeah.
know your three-pointer is not like it perked up over this week at home. It continues to be better at home than on the road. But like why not like try to get to the basket more? Like we keep wondering. Like I
Mhm.
don't know. It's a very weird, like it's another one where what's like what's going on with you on the road? Like it's just very odd.
Yeah,
Um
it's almost like he loses his superpowers. Like it's his kryptonite to play on the road. It really is. It's like the Monstars have entered the building. They've taken away all of his talent, and he just forgets how to play basketball. And I feel like he's even worse defensively on the road too. I don't know if that is something that you've noticed as well, but it just seems like
He's awful tonight. Awful.
yeah, I don't know how many times he got beat back door, held his
Yeah.
hand up saying my bad, and like I asked him about his defense. I think it was after the Blazers game, and he was like, it's not linear growth, and so I have ups and downs. At least he admitted that and said he's not just like on this trajectory of rising as a defender. Like no, it's still up and down. It's still good. It's still bad. And I felt like that tonight was like one of the things I noticed is like, man, like they cannot get a stop, right? And I think they're just absolutely abuse him. And I think honestly for him when he is really struggling offensively, it does carry over into his defense. And I think it continues to be a mental thing for him than more than anything because he hasn't really looked injured to me the last couple of weeks. I know people have wondered if he has not looked injured. I think it looks mental. And when things are going well, seems like everything's going to go well for him. But when things go bad, it's like everything goes bad for him. There's no happy medium right now for Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah, I will say like he kept like seemed more upbeat even though he hadn't been doing a lot of scoring at least early in the game.
For sure.
I that definitely went sideways like as the game went on. A lot easier to be happy when your team's winning and even if you're not like doing much of the scoring. Um, but yeah, it's just a bizarre season. Like we just got to see him perk up on the road. Like it doesn't make sense for it to be this poor just after we saw him play very well for multiple games.
Well, let me
Um,
ask you this because I am curious. I think that if you look at some of the road games they've had, for the majority, they've had teams really hounding him defensively. Go back last Friday, their last home or their last road game. Andre Jackson Jr. is guarding him full court the whole game, like you said, face guarding like the Grizzlies did, Wells did in this game, Jackson did in that game. I think Toronto did a really good job of that with Mitchell guarding him, face guarding him, a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to remember in Houston who was guarding him that game was just awful from top to bottom. You go back a couple of games against Orlando, they were really face guarding him. So is it maybe just the way teams are guarding him on the road? Maybe they're playing more defensive minded teams or teams that have a better defensive scheme against him, and he's just really struggling to figure it out? Or did tonight kind of maybe show you something early on with Nembhard being there to kind of help, lighten the load a little bit with how they're going to guard him? Like they can take advantage of other areas. Is that maybe something you're looking at too?
I mean, it's definitely, I think Caitlin Cooper's pointed this out multiple times. Like, that's why they need those 2 point guards out there because when they guard Tyrese like that, it's so much easier to allow the other guy to just go ahead and run things and then take advantage of that extra attention that he's getting. I think the maybe an encouraging way to look at it for Tyrese is even though he's having these struggles, like teams are still acting like he's like superstar level type of guy. So like the NBA is still treating him like he is the dude. Um, so like that's something you can say. I think the getting Nembhard back and like they in the third quarter they quickly went to McConnell, having him on the court next to Tyrese after like 2 minutes of Quenton Jackson because they immediately lost that lead. So they definitely like realize they need an extra ball handler out there, especially when teams are treating Tyrese like that full court pressure. I think he could do a better job though of like just not ceding to that pressure and just being like just pointing immediately like, hey, you give him the ball. I'm not going to try to get it this time. Um, like it seems like like we saw Andre Jackson guard him last year with the Bucks, like, and he blew right by him and dunked it. Like I can remember that specific play in my mind of that happening. And obviously, it didn't matter what the Bucks did last year. Like the Pacers
Right.
were doing whatever they wanted basically
Hmm.
for every single one of those games. So like I don't it's bizarre. Like I feel like some of it's just him ceding like the possession too easily and just like giving it up. Even in the fourth quarter, like Ben was drawing a lot of fouls, but even then, like it felt like he was kind of giving up too much to just the Ben show of driving in and trying to get something going inside instead of trying to get himself going too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because it does seem like he just allows the defense to dictate what he does. And he doesn't try to fight through it enough, and I think that's one thing that he's going to have to learn. I also think that as we're seeing so many teams guard him this way, right? It's only going to make him want to figure out how to get past this. Now, it might not happen this season. It might not happen. It might happen this season, but it might happen later in the year. Once you get a guy like Nembhard back, you get Neesmith healthy, you get Shepard back. I mean, I think that does play a factor into it quite a bit that we just can't overlook because, yeah, you can use injuries as an excuse, and we're not trying to do that, but I think we're trying to justify like what he's dealing with and just kind of explain it. Maybe not justify, but kind of like break down because I think when you talk about, he always points at somebody to take the ball up, even if it's Maturin at times, right? Like he just immediately says, "I don't want the ball." And then we've seen times also where he does kind of try to get past a good defender like a Marcus Smart in the third quarter. Marcus Smart just completely rips him on, on a, just bring the ball up the court because, I think he's got a strong handle. I'm not saying he's not strong there, but I think that any kind of defensive pressure does kind of impact him somewhat. So I think he's going to have to get much, much stronger in the offseason next year at dealing with guys guarding him full court and really trying to make him get off the ball because I think if he can put on some more weight, it's going to make him more of a scorer potentially where he can use that overplaying defensive, scheme that's going against him to his advantage to draw fouls because he's not one that really gets to the free throw line a lot. And I think you talked about Maturin doing a great job at that. You probably want to see Tyrese do a little bit more of that, especially with how difficult it is to score with how tight they're guarding him. And he's not a strong guy. He's pretty thin, thin frame. I know he's gotten more muscular since he first came into the league, and that's great. And he's talked about getting stronger. Carlisle's talked about him getting stronger, but he's just not able to power through those defenders. And that's what I've said multiple times on this podcast. Like, this isn't Giannis. This isn't Jason Tatum. He's not built that way. So when teams are throwing that kind of pressure at him and he's just ceding to it, like you mentioned, then it just really kind of slows the offense down. And now the Pacers cannot play their pace. So they were able to play it for one quarter in this game, and they looked awesome. They don't play it the rest of the game because they're too busy taking the ball out of the basket or turning it over. Now they look like a team that doesn't know what they're doing. So I don't know if you agree with anything I'm saying there, but it just feels like Tyrese, like we know the potential is still there. And I think you bring up a great point as well, saying, yeah, teams are still guarding him like he's the best player because they know if he gets loose and gets going, like it's going to open up the Red Sea for this team, right? Come on down, Moses. This Red Sea's open, right? But like, it's just at this point, if they can take Tyrese away, this Pacers team, to me, looks like a bottom feeder in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, that's just accurate. Like you just look at the numbers and the losses for the Pacers, and like Tyrese's numbers are terrible. I think he's getting real close to already having the same amount of single digit performances that he had all of last season,
Mm,
like already, and it's somewhere only a fourth of the way through the year.
that's awful.
Um, like I think one thing we could have seen more is like having Tyrese be a screener more often when he's face guarded. I know if I've seen people talk about like that's like a kind of a counter to doing to having people being face guarded is just like to help people get open that way. And then that in turn can like once you force that defender off of you to help on the whoever's coming around the pick or whatever, then you can get open that way. Yeah, it's bizarre. Like I feel like they'll figure this out. I don't think it'll be like too long. It's just like he kind of dips back into it's one of those things where it doesn't feel linear either. Like they feel like they solve these kind of issues at times and then they fall back into old habits
Yeah.
with it too. So it's bizarre. Um, I think that's all I got on Tyrese today. You want
Yeah, I mean,
to?
and you bring up a good point, like setting screens. Like, I would love to see more inverted pick and rolls with him and Pascal.
Yep.
I think that far too often, which we know Pascal is a good low post scorer, but I feel like more so recently, I've noticed that Carlisle has been actually calling some plays from the sideline where he is signaling for the team to clear out and get Pascal open looks on the low block, which I'm okay with, but it's not their style, right? And I think that's okay if you need a go-to basket when, the offense is going through a rough stretch. You go to your most consistent offensive player this season, Pascal, get him the ball. Have no problem with that. But maybe if there's another way you can work it in where, okay, let's just say, for example, in tonight's game, Jalen Wells is guarding Tyrese. Siakam has the ball, right? You go and set a screen. Now Jalen Wells takes the switch, and whoever was guarding Pascal, whether it's Jaren Jackson Jr., whoever, now they're guarding Tyrese. Now you've got that switch that you want. And you can either go back to Tyrese and let him try to create off the dribble versus a bigger defender, or you've got Pascal now in a pick and roll situation with a smaller defender on him. So I just think that there's different ways you can look to attack that. And sometimes I feel like it's a simple process, but it's being more complicated than it needs to be. And I was going to bring up Myles because I don't think you really want to do any kind of inverted pick and roll with Myles because I hate to say this about Myles, but he has absolutely terrible hands. Okay. Guy can't dribble unless he's got like a running start, two dribbles, dunk on somebody. Him driving to the basket is not usually does not usually result in a good, ending. And then of course, it's just who's usually guarding Myles in these situations. Do we always see centers guarding him? Not really. Sometimes we see smaller guys guarding him because they want to try to keep him out of the off the 3-point line, and they're like, okay, force him to go down low and be a post scorer, and that's not really his game either. So Myles in the wins has been great. Myles in the losses has not been good. I know it's a very simple and easy way to look at it, but the Pacers need him to be significantly better if they're going to win some games. I know Tyrese has to be better, but I think Myles is probably number two in terms of who really needs to step up their game.
And it seems like him and Tyrese kind of gone together. Like if one's playing well, then the other usually is, and if one is not, then the other's not. So like it's been a weird. Like I don't feel like it was like that last year. Like Myles could have a bad game and Tyrese would be fine. Like so
Yeah.
it's been a weird one. I thought Myles was awesome to start this game. Like I think he made his first three shots, I think, like two threes, shot inside, and then like I thought he was a great rim deterrent on the other end of the court. Like he wasn't getting blocks, but he was like every time somebody was in the paint, like he was forcing them to pass or they'd have to go somewhere else.
Mm.
Then he was just awful the rest of the game. Like just no other way to put it. He continues like last year, like he was hitting his little turnaround hook shot like at a 70% clip, and I think it's probably somewhere around 25% this year. Like you can't get anything to fall that's from like outside of 3 feet to like the free throw line. Like anything in that range is just not going in for whatever reason. The last time I looked at it, it was like a career low at like 24%. Like it had
Dang.
never been lower than like 50 before
Wow.
that, probably maybe a little bit lower than that, but like he has a reputation of not being a great post scorer, but like he's been able the last couple years to take advantage of mismatches way better than he has this year.
Mm.
Like he just can't, for whatever reason, he just can't, hasn't been able to just turn around, hit the shot like he has been like for at least a few years now.
Yeah.
Like
Do you think a lot
you're
of the
gonna throw it, you're not gonna
well,
throw it to him when he's got like a center on him,
yeah.
but like, he's been able to finish when he's got a little on him more often than not the last couple years, despite the poor reputation. It doesn't always look pretty, but
Mm.
like he gets a bucket or he gets fouled often, but it has not worked this year and the chances he's gotten.
Am I wrong for remembering that he used to have a little off the glass 10-foot jumper that he would always shoot over those guys?
That was his rookie go-to. Like I always
Yeah.
wonder like why because that should have been like the foundation of everything for him from the like because once you establish that you can make that quick shot, then like you can counter and do everything you want. So it was always bizarre to me that kind of like just disappeared completely from his game. He rarely does it anymore. But yeah, it used to be like anytime he touched it 15 feet and in, like if it was a post, he'd just like quickly turn around, nail it off the glass or just nail it right in.
I
And yeah,
mean,
that was just
that
done.
whole entire summer with Kevin McHale is just down the drain now, I think. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what'd you spend all that time with Kevin McHale for if you're not going to continue to use what he gave you? But seriously, you're right. I mean, it just feels like Miles is in a weird spot this year. It's a contract year, so you expect him to play at a higher level. And it's kind of been the opposite, right? And I was sitting next to Tyler Smith at the last home game against the Pistons, and he's like, this Miles contract's really going to be an interesting one because nobody really wants to talk about it right now because it's so far away and there's nothing to really hit on too much right now. But it's just like the Pacers desperately need him to be good because they don't have anybody else. Like, I'm sorry, like Obi Toppin at the five has not been good this year. Moses Brown at the five is not the answer. And you desperately miss Ijax, and to a certain degree, even James Wiseman not being healthy is a difference. Now, I don't think James Wiseman is the great player that I've been seeing on social media and the replies to me on Twitter when I said that Isaiah Jackson, the injury for him is probably the biggest one of the season, just because I personally think having to play Miles that many minutes really hurts your team. Ijax gives them a completely different look at the center position that Miles doesn't really play. So it's kind of like yin and yang right there. So it's like, okay, maybe you can have Ijax come in for this matchup where Miles isn't playing as well in that spot. More athletic team, switch out on guys easier. Like that's Ijax's game. But I feel like a lot of the comments were like, well, I think Wiseman was going to pass Ijax. I just don't really understand why people think that because he scored some points in preseason, okay? His defense was terrible. So I I just feel like Miles has to be so good because they don't have any other options. And he's going to play 30 minutes almost every night, at least at the five, because that's their best option. And when he's not playing well, then it's like, okay, well, you're kind of danged if you do, danged if you don't.
Yeah, I agree that like Isaiah Jackson's been like underrated in terms of how important like he would have been just because like I don't know if I could go as far as more important than Nembhard and Neesmith just because like you immediately lose both your best two perimeter defenders is rough. But Ajax was playing like really well. And I really feel for him because like this is really his first opportunity at consistent minutes, a consistent role in the NBA since he's been with the Pacers. Like he's been like same situation that Goga was for a long time, just behind every center in the world, it felt like. So yeah, like you said, he brings a different dimension to the team, can do different things than Miles can. I don't like I don't think Wiseman was passing him or even coming close to it this year, if I'm
Yeah.
honest. Um, his injury also sucks, like super terrible. Like it would have been great to like have him develop in the pace with the Pacers system for this year and potentially next year, to see if he could potentially like take the backup spot if like Ajax went somewhere else or Miles went somewhere else. But yeah, now the Pacers are just like they're gonna have to pay Miles, but like if they're this bad, like they're not gonna go into the tax to do it.
Yeah.
You can't justify to your owner like, hey, we're a below 500 team if they stay this way. Like we made the play in or whatever, we lost in the first round, got swept or something. Like let's yeah, let's go into the luxury tax. Like
Yeah.
that's a hard sell. It's a hard sell. Um, so like, and if you don't, but if you don't keep Miles, like you've got Isaiah Jackson as a restricted free agent coming off an Achilles. You don't know what he's going to look like next season. Like Wiseman, another guy coming off an Achilles, already like a guy that needs a ton of development, not going to be ready to be like a starter immediately. Like it's becomes really hard to find like, okay, what are we going to do at center if we don't keep Miles? And if they do, like instead of going to the tax, that means they're gonna have to trade somebody else to get under the tax. So like it's a gonna be a really fascinating situation if like the team doesn't pick up their level of play as the year goes on, to see like how Kevin Pritchard and company figure out what they're gonna do at the five spot.
Well, how important do you think it is for Kevin Pritchard in that front office to be looking at an actual center to go out and get during the trade market before the trade deadline? Because I think to me, like the proof is in the pudding, right? Like Obi Toppin is not the answer at the small ball five. Like he just has not been good whatsoever this year at that spot. I think we maybe have seen a flash or two in one game or two games this season, but not enough to make me feel like that's a long term solution. And then obviously Moses Brown, like Carlisle has zero trust in him. I mean, you can just tell, like when he puts him in the game and pulls him out within like 30 seconds, like, okay, there's things he's not doing right. Like Carlisle is just like, yeah, you're going to come off the court. So I don't know if like that's the resource you want to spend your money on this season, right? But I mean, I think they have to look really hard at the center position in terms of making a trade.
We're gonna have to figure out something just for like a solid backup that's an NBA level guy. Like there's a reason that Moses Brown has been on 7 teams in 6 years. Like,
Yeah.
and one of those teams he was on twice his rookie year and then like 6 years later. So like it's really 8 teams in 6 years.
Yeah.
And most of those teams, like it's only a handful of games that he's playing with them. It's not like he's stayed in one place for an entire season and like played a backup role. Like he's never had that. And like he's only 25. Like there are some things he does really well. That first game he got in, like incredible, incredible stuff that he scored those first 8 points in that game. Like awesome performance, really gave the Pacers a lift when they desperately needed it. But he's not going to be a guy that's going to be able to give you consistent backup minutes and be a positive player. Like
Yeah.
it's just a reality.
Would you trade
Like
Obi Toppin for a backup center?
depends on who it is. Depends on who it is. Like I think part of the reason Obi has really struggled this year is because he's had to play the five so much.
Yeah.
Like so I feel like if he's playing the four, he'd probably play even better. Although today he was playing the five and he was going off and he was playing great in that first quarter. But I think a lot of the reason that he's not been himself is because he's not really playing the same position. And obviously the Pacers like have lost their identity like through most of these games. And he is like that's the system that like is the reason he played so well last year. So if the Pacers aren't playing that way, like he's not gonna look the same.
Yeah.
So maybe if Jarris keeps looking as good as he does has the last couple games, like I think he's been one of the few positives the last couple nights. Like maybe you feel more comfortable like giving him the full-time role, but like he's been inconsistent. So like can you like trade Obi and then you're hurting your backup 4 minutes with having somebody that's going to be less consistent than Toppin? Like it's tough. There's not an easy answer. I think that the easiest way they can do it is just like trading either Wiseman's contract or Jackson's contract with like a pick, whether it's a few seconds or whatever, probably just seconds, and then getting just an NBA vet that's somewhere. I don't know if they could get Valanciunas for a bunch of seconds. Probably, I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows? Not any NBA trade. Like it only makes sense when it happens. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, Valanciunas obviously is a name that's been out there too, not very expensive.
that's just the first guy that popped in my mind that's on a bad team that
Right, right. I
is
mean,
probably looking to be traded.
I saw that the Bulls are looking to trade Vucevic, right?
Vucevic, yeah.
So it's like, would Vooch make sense? $20 million, you trade Toppin plus Wiseman's contract, you cut Moses Brown, you probably can make that work. Now Vooch is your backup five. Do you feel good enough offensively losing Toppin now that you have an offensive minded Vooch
Yeah.
out there? Plus he's
That's a
got one
lot
more
of
year on
money.
his deal, and that could kind of be your replacement for Myles for a season if you want to do that. But at the same time, a much bigger drop off defensively, older, you're going to play slower. It just there's a lot of factors in there. I'm not saying it's the ideal thing, but just throwing it out there to have a conversation because I mean, I do think Vooch at times is like a really good player. Like he's still a very skilled player. I think he's significantly better than Valanciunas in my opinion, and can at least spread the floor with his 3-point shot. Good rebounder, good passer. Like no, he's not fast, but expectations and cost are a lot probably higher for him than Valanciunas. So just throwing something like that out there. I wondered about Robert Williams as well in Portland. Like if that guy is healthy,
If he's healthy, then great.
that's that's a really good pickup if you can get that for top and plus something, right? I just don't know what exactly Portland would expect in return. But if you could get like 2 or 3 seconds and topping for Robert Williams, like, would you pull the trigger on that?
I probably wouldn't because I just don't trust that Time Lord can stay on the court anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But if he
Like it'd be
can, I
hard.
mean,
That'd be a hard sell for me.
yeah, I mean, but the thing is, if he can stay healthy, right, like that would be
Yeah.
ideal
And
because, I
we're
mean,
probably thinking too big, honestly. Like it's probably gonna be somebody small. Like it's funny, they really just need like a Daniel Tice.
well, I
Like if
mean, we
he
saw
was still
Daniel Tice. I
around,
mean, minus 30 against the Pacers. I
I
mean,
mean,
this
I'm just
Pacers
saying,
team,
they just need somebody who can play 10 minutes at
yeah,
center. Like that's an NBA level vet. Like yeah, you can think about trying to get somebody that's gonna replace Miles, but that's like you're like that's gonna mess with your team this year. If
it
you're like
will.
bringing a guy in that's like, hey Miles, no, we just got over all this stuff, but here's another one you're gonna have to get through.
You
We're
got to play
trading for a
through
guy
this.
that's gonna replace you next year, and he's gonna back you up this year, but then we're just gonna let you go.
Well,
So
maybe he'll
like
start playing better and earn your contract.
that's
I mean, at
true.
least
I
that
mean,
make.
he might. That's that's
But
fair.
like, Bruno Fernando is a name I keep looking at with Toronto. Like, I just think somebody like that would make a lot of sense. And I don't want to keep bringing up guys I've said before for like really cheap buys, but I don't know. It's got to be a conversation they have. But anyway, I digress from trade talk already. I'm not trying to get that into it, but we are in December. We're only 14 days away from, that trade cutoff there where a lot of guys are eligible to be traded here on December 15th. But with the Pacers, right? Like this is just an awful game. I mean, is there anything else from this game that you wanted to bring up? I know we didn't always talk about the good stuff, but I thought McConnell was really pretty good in this game. I know you mentioned it a little bit, but like, it's like having a secondary ball handler out there was massive, but it wasn't sustainable because of the amount of minutes these guys have to play and, got to get guys breaks too. So, anyway, anything else you want to bring up?
Uh, I thought this was like you said, Pascal was just kind of very mediocre today. He felt like a way more out of control at times than like you ever see him. Still just like he still got 17 points, but on 15 shots. Um, like it's funny, like that's one of his worst games this season.
Hmm.
Um, then like he did a good job drawing a lot of fouls in the fourth quarter, but I did not think he was very good tonight, to be honest. He had the same issue with Haliburton, like losing a ton of people back door. I'm sure you're hesitant to fuel more fire for
I
the
mean, my goodness, if I say anything negative about Benedict Mather on this podcast, it's like coming from my head on social. But like, no, he wasn't good tonight. I mean, it's fair to he's not been playing well, and I think that kind of has quieted a lot of people on social media too. It's just what are you going to say about what he's doing right now? I mean, I'm not saying he's playing bad by any stretch of the mean, but he's not playing good. Like, I feel like the homestand he was not great overall. Like he was okay. And I think we're starting to see like with more responsibility defensively for him, like it's just a harder matchup. Like people want to act like he's a really good defender and he's really improving. And I will say that, yeah, he's taking strides forward, but it's still a massive work in progress. And I just don't think the Pacers can play the style they particularly want to play with both him and Siakam out there playing 30 plus minutes a night. Like they have to completely change their system. And that's why I think getting Nembhard and Neesmith back is big. And I know it was a small sample size, started out really slow this year, but everybody was ready to throw in the towel on Neesmith and Nembhard as starters and say Maturin should be starting. It doesn't matter. Even Walker should be starting. And it's like you've seen Walker and Maturin together without Nembhard and Neesmith, and this team is significantly worse. So hopefully, this small sample size the last 3 weeks has given people enough of a realization like how pivotal both Aaron and Andrew are to the success of this team.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see like how the starting lineup shakes out once Neesmith's back in a few weeks, however long it takes. Like
Do you think
once
Matherin keeps starting?
I think he will at first, but I think eventually it might go back to what it was last year. It's
I
really hard to play Tyrese and Ben together. Like it's just other than that New York game when they were both just on fire
yeah.
and awesome, like they're just both like they're both improving defensively, but like Tyree said, it's not linear growth. Like they're gonna have bad nights, and when they both have bad nights, like tonight, it looks really, really, really bad.
Hmm.
Like there's no other way to say it. It's like it's really hard for them to play together when they both are just big negative defenders like they were tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like I don't want them to be bad together. That's the whole thing. Like I want them to be really good together. Like that's what I would love to see. And I'm hoping that maybe Matherin and Tyrese can be better with Nembhard out there, right? Because if you don't have Quenton Jackson out there, right, you have a guy that's actually more of a NBA level player. I think Quenton Jackson is one of these guys that, yeah, maybe he proved tonight or over this little stretch here that he might deserve to be on a 15-man roster, maybe on certain teams, maybe being that 10-man rotation. But like for a team that's trying to make the playoffs, he cannot be your best perimeter defender in a 10-man rotation. Like that just isn't going to cut it. And that's not saying anything bad about him. It's just where the league's at and the level of talent where it's at and where he's at personally. So I think everybody would love to see Matherin and Halliburton work really well together. It's not been there, and it's been going over the last 3 seasons. It just hasn't been a great fit stylistically. And part of it's on Tyrese for not being better at learning how to play in a different system, but part of it's on Ben too, because he knows Tyrese is the guy, so he's got to adjust to Ty more than Ty needs to adjust to him. And so I think that's a fair thing to ask of him. But at the same time, if Nembhard can come back, play at the level he played tonight, maybe that'll unlock some opportunities here for Matherin to prove why he fits with this group and why maybe they should bring Neesmith off the bench. But I just feel like knowing how bad it's been on both sides of the floor, Carlisle is going to revert back to what worked so well for him in the playoffs. And I think, they can't play their style of play if Neesmith and Nembhard aren't out there with Tyrese. And Carlisle has mentioned that indirectly multiple times in post-game interviews and in radio interviews, just saying like, we have to change our system completely because we don't have the guys out there that run our system. So I hate to say it, but I think that when your head coach is saying all this stuff and it's kind of been proven over the last couple of years, you kind of have to go with what you know. And I don't think you can judge what the slow start was. You can't say, oh, well, that first 5 games is so bad, we shouldn't give them another chance. I think last year's longevity and what we saw should matter more than what we've seen in a 5-game stretch of this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the Ben's played well. Like I think he's gotten better,
For sure.
but it's just like him playing well hasn't led to the team success. And like he can't make up for Tyrese not being good. So when Tyrese isn't good, like Ben's not making up for that. Like Tyrese, like when he's at his best, like if you're trying to decide like who should be the guy, like when Tyrese is at his best, he can make up for a lot because he gets everybody else going too, except Ben. For whatever reason, they don't have the same chemistry that a lot of the other people on the team do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's bizarre. Like I think Ben will keep the starting spot for at least a little while, and then it'll have to be let's see if he can keep it like it was at the beginning of last year. Because like he
Hmm.
started as a starter last year, and then they had to go away from that because it just wasn't working.
Yeah, I mean, Carlisle even said, like, he was mostly our 6th man last year. We agree that was what was best for our team, and I think they're probably going to revert back to that. I just, knowing how the season has been, right, especially the last month, it's not been good. And they've had moments, right, like some of the best moments they've had, like you mentioned, the Knicks game with Ty and Ben. Go back to Ben and Pascal playing great against the Celtics, right? that happened this season, believe it or not. It doesn't feel like it happened this year because it's been so long ago. But for the most part, the Pacers' big wins, Mathurin's played great in the Dallas game. He was really good in. So Myles obviously was great, and Ty was great in that one, but he was good in that game. So it's like, and some of the bigger wins they've had, he's been a big part of it, but it's just been too far in between, between one game into the next. So he's a good player, and I think everybody knows that. Like everybody that watches his team doesn't think Ben Mathurin's. They don't think he's a bad basketball player. I think the biggest thing is the fit, and I think if he were on a totally different team, you might be like, "Whoa, the Pacers should trade for this guy." But like that's just kind of how it is. You have to get the right guys that fit, and I find it really fascinating. You brought up Siakam earlier. How Carlisle has like openly told different teams and different reporters that aren't just Indiana people how the Siakam Haliburton thing has really changed the way they play a little bit. And he constantly brings up the physicality that they're allowing in the league now compared to the freedom of movement affecting their gameplay. So it does kind of all circle back to Tyrese being like more physical and stuff like that. But like to me, like Pascal to me last year in the playoffs didn't slow them down that much pace wise. So I'm not sure what's changed this season compared to last year.
Yeah, I still haven't figured that out. I don't get why things feel so different compared to like we saw the glimpse and maybe like the hope of like Ben in the starting lineup would be that first quarter.
Yeah.
Like that would like obviously they're not gonna score 45 points every quarter, shoot like lights out like that. But like we can see it work there. Like if you want to like hold on to the hope that like he can grab that spot and keep it. Um, like his numbers say that he's earned it. Um, so yeah, I don't. But it's bizarre why they can't. Like they just haven't been able to keep their identity that they had last year for whatever reason, and they're still struggling to keep it and find it and
Yeah.
continue it on.
Well, the good news is it looked like Carlisle said that Andrew looked good in his minutes and that the minute restriction could change in Toronto. Obviously, we know Nembhard is from Canada, so that probably will be a big game for him. Pacers, final NBA Cup game. Can they shake the curse and win a game? I think they have like the worst or the second worst point differential in NBA
It was the
Cup
worst
games.
when I saw it the
Yeah,
last time. Like a
yeah.
team I think was tied, but they had won again.
Washington.
Are they worst?
Or was it
Okay.
Pelicans? It was Pelicans, and they're 1-3,
Yeah.
and they were like a
Yeah.
minus 49. I think the
But
Pacers were
they've
right
won a
around there.
game, so they're technically better.
Yeah. So it's been awful. The NBA Cup has been the complete opposite of what the in-season tournament was for the Pacers. So I'm not really worried about the game in terms of like the cup standings, but I am worried about the game in terms of regular season wins and losses, right? Toronto is a team they probably, should have been more competitive against the last time they played, but you had no Miles, you had no, I think Shepard got hurt in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that was the first game
Or
he
he missed that
missed.
game. He missed
That was
that
the
game.
first game he missed. They started Jarris, and then the next game they
Enrique
started
Freeman started
starting
for
Quenton
Miles, and
Jackson.
that's
Yeah.
and they had no other center because they didn't have Moses Brown yet. That kind of forced them to sign a center when Miles went out,
Yep.
and Miles is dealing with a calf injury. So, you kind of give them a little bit of a break there just because of like the amount of guys they had out, but like still, compete
They're
level
playing
was not.
Raptors team that had won 2 games and
Yeah,
didn't have Scotty Barnes, and yeah, lots
yeah. I
of
mean, they just let RJ Barrett walk to the rim. 39 points for him last game, season high. So, like it's not an easy, it's not like, oh, they're gonna walk in and it's an easy game. It's Toronto, they're bad. Like Scotty Barnes is back. He's playing better. Scotty Barnes had a terrific moment on Twitter where he was giving the referee the technical foul sign when he got a tech. I don't know if anybody else saw that, but it was absolutely hilarious. I laughed so hard. He had his little goggles on and he's like teeing him up at the same time as he's getting teed up. I thought it was great. I love a sarcastic player when they're mad and the referees are giving it to him. Carlisle had a moment today when he was pretty upset that the officials were reviewing a flagrant foul potentially on Quenton Jackson, but they did not review one when Obi Toppin hurt his ankle in the third quarter. So, Carlisle was just not having any of it. He wanted to be thrown out of that game
I
desperately.
think I think he got that technical on purpose because he didn't want to use one of his timeouts.
That's a good point.
Toppin was hurt, and they like only had 2 timeouts for like the rest of the game. Like I think
Yeah.
he was like, I'm just gonna get out my frustration and like save a timeout right now.
Yeah.
Like I don't think he was that mad that they weren't reviewing that. Like the
I don't
play
know.
was live. Like I don't like
Well, maybe not in the moment, but he was
stop it.
really mad when they reviewed the one for the Grizzlies in the fourth.
He was, he
Like,
was. He was definitely trying to get kicked out later. Like he was
yes.
was not wanting to watch it, just like we all weren't wanting to continue to watch it.
I mean, a lot of fans are calling for him to be fired. I don't want to go there yet. I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
No.
I think that last year, like he took this team to levels like that group of guys to like the Eastern Conference Finals, and they were competitive even though they got swept. So it's like I think everybody just loves to blame the coach and the
Yes.
defensive system. Like you don't have good defensive players. Like it doesn't matter what coach you bring in to put defense in. Like if you don't have good defensive players, it's not going to really matter, right?
Yep. Yeah, I would. There's no case for firing Carlisle if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, but fans have been screaming it in my mentions every single game, even in wins. We barely beat the Pelicans. Fire Carlisle. Okay, all right. Carlisle sucks, right? That make you feel better? Said it. Bunch of crap. Anyway, I'm just I'm just so over some of these fans with their takes. It's like, give me James Wiseman all day, every day over Miles and I Jackson. Fire Carlisle while you're at it because our defense sucks. Like, well, you realize it's gonna suck if you put James Wiseman in there over those guys. So just I'm just a little bit
I
torn.
think I just mute everybody that does that to me because I'm like, I don't want to do
I just
this.
can't help myself. It just makes me laugh every time I see it, and then I get yelled at on the podcast for how stupid I am about not knowing anything about basketball. So, um, anyway, all I gotta say is like, game's over, move on. Another loss. It sucked. The Grizzlies jerseys were awesome. The court was awesome. Pacers second through fourth quarter was crap, and big stink, big F if you're giving out your grades.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
I will say this. Derek did text me and he said, got any ideas for a draft we can do instead of talking about this game or in addition to talking about this game? Because I want to be excited about talking about something. I will say this. Somebody on Twitter recently said, this podcast has fallen off so far. I understand not talking about basketball in the off season, but these guys did a top 5 desserts at the end of one of their podcasts. And this is a basketball podcast. And I was like, you guys gonna get mad about that? Like, it's already 30 minutes in. We've been talking about a crappy loss. You're gonna get mad that we did our top 5 desserts. So anyway, we're gonna bring it back. We're bringing back a food discussion here to kind of end this podcast. We're gonna
Right.
do a draft,
Turn it
and
off, you hoopers that only want to listen to hoops. Bye.
yeah, thanks for coming. Make sure you give us 5 star rating and review. You love this podcast? Thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, and yeah, for our foodies that like hearing non-basketball talk that want to just be entertained by the man who deemed the name Doom Baby for this court that he's sitting in front of here on the green screen. I love that Doom
No, I'm
Baby
still in
because
the arena. We talked about this.
you are.
These people, I don't know why they're frozen. Like they've
Oh,
just
they've
been
been
like
moving. You
this
just haven't
for
been noticing.
hours. But I just never left. It's funny. You just like hang around. They just don't tell you to leave. I just stayed
You
the whole
changed
time.
clothes,
Yeah, I found a shower. It's no problem.
took a shower in the locker room, got some Pacers
Yeah,
gear.
don't tell anybody. Don't tell Mike.
I love it, man. I love it. But anyway, the rules for this draft, will you please explain them to me because I want to make sure that I'm on the same page with you.
Okay, so we're drafting pizza toppings, but we're drafting 5 pizza toppings to make one pizza.
Okay, so it
So
can't be
whoever
like
makes the best pizza, that's the winner of the draft.
who's going to determine the best pizza.
I don't know. You put a poll up.
All right, I'll put a poll up. I'm sure people will be mad. Why are you talking about food? The Pacers lost. Fire Carlisle. Fire Carlisle and have him take your pizza with you.
You can make that the third choice.
Okay, Fire
You
Carlisle.
name I bet if you name your pizza the Fire Carlisle pizza, you'll get way more votes.
Yeah, I know, but I might not. Anyway, I'm not gonna do that. All right, so I'll give you the option. Do you want first pick or second and third?
Uh, I'll take first pick.
Okay, we're building our pizza. What is your first pick?
I'll go pepperoni.
Okay, typical.
Typical. Basic me.
Okay, so I'm assuming like we already have like tomato sauce and
We can
mozzarella
change
on
the
our pizza.
sauce. Like I don't feel
Okay,
like we have to vote or like draft the sauce, but we can specify if we want a different sauce.
do I have to draft mozzarella cheese or is that
No,
already a given?
I think that's given. Unless you want to change. Same with sauce.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave it as it is. If we want to change our sauce and I want to build a different kind of pizza, that's fine. For me, I'm gonna go sausage. I think that's the obvious answer here, and more of like the Italian sausage because I think it's good. And because you took one pork item, I'm gonna take another pork item. I'm gonna take bacon.
Nice, nice. Okay, I'm gonna take chicken,
Okay.
and I'm gonna take. Oh, what do we go with first? I'm gonna go jalapenos.
Jalapenos. All right. A little spicy pizza action over here.
Yeah, fire Carlisle.
Oh my God. That's great. Oh man, that's
Remember
awesome.
what I said earlier? I do not want to do that.
The fire Carlisle pizza. You could have gone with spicy pea. My God, that would have been better. But
You're
okay, I'm gonna go with ricotta cheese because I love me some ricotta cheese on my pizza. Hmm.
Oh, was I supposed to draft two? No, I did. Never mind.
You
Sorry.
did chicken and jalapenos, yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Come on now. That's what happens when you're stuck in a building for 3 days.
I'm losing my mind.
Um, okay. Another topping. This is a tough one, but I'm gonna go with onions.
Onions, okay.
But just little diced onions, not overkill, just a little bit of onion on top of my pizza.
All right. Not gonna go half and half, one half with onions.
No, this is a full pizza, right? We're baking it.
Yeah. Well, full pizza. Okay. So I'm finishing my pizza now, right?
Yes, you're finishing. Got 2 picks
Wait.
left.
So I got pepperoni, I got chicken, I got jalapenos. I'm gonna add some Roma tomatoes,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna add some bell peppers as well.
All right, that's your
This is
last one.
this is barbecue sauce.
No, you didn't draft barbecue sauce. You can't add that on
Well,
now.
we already talked about this, so we don't need to draft a sauce.
Okay, we don't have to
We can
draft it.
just change the sauce if
So
we need.
pepperoni on barbecue sauce?
It's good. Don't knock it. This is the exact pizza, except for I don't get Roma tomatoes usually. But this is the exact pizza I order and I make at home. It's delicious. My kids
Pepperoni
love it.
on barbecue? I've never had that.
Dude, it is so good. Specifically, if I'm making it, I use the Sweet Baby Ray's, the what's the barbecue? It's like hickory smoked barbecue, I think.
Okay.
But it's there's something else to it. Brown sugar, brown sugar, something.
Okay.
It
This
is
sounds like a
delicious.
Facci pizza. Facci loves barbecue chicken pizzas.
It's it's very good. I just
Okay.
just don't knock the chicken pepperoni combo with barbecue sauces. It's very nice. It's very nice.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've got 1 pick left. I'm trying to think where I should go with this because sausage and bacon's pretty good. Do I want to add another meat on there? Do I want to put ham on there? Does ham sound good with that? I'm not really sure. I feel like ham and pepperoni needs to be together. I don't feel like sausage and bacon is good with ham, but I'm wondering what other thing I should put on there. Or is that just too much, right? Like I've already got onion on there. Does that make you sick? Do I put a little garlic on there? I mean, does garlic count? Just trying to think here. I'm just trying to
You're
think,
running
you
out of
know.
toppings now. You're just trying. I
No, I
did
mean
think
I've got
about.
toppings. Trust me, I've got other toppings I can pull from. I'm just trying to think what's the best here. Do I just do like hamburger meat? Does that
I did
sound
have
good?
like a. I was gonna ask you this question, but then I forgot. Like a cheese dip. Like,
So
does
you
that
can't.
count as a topping?
I think it does. It's a dipping sauce.
Then I want to switch my choice.
Well, you already drafted. Maybe I should draft cheese sauce now, so you can't have it. No, I mean we can do it. We'll do a dipping sauce after. That's fine.
All
We'll
right.
do a dipping sauce after. Um, just to keep it simple, I guess I'm just gonna go ham. I'm just gonna go ham to make it like a 3 meat lover thing without pepperoni. So you're getting some ham in there, and then I'm
Boo.
gonna draft my dipping
Gross.
sauce, and you'll let you have your dipping sauce. I'm gonna go with ranch. Ranch is my dipping sauce.
Barf. Oh, I would not eat your pizza.
Ranch?
Gross.
You don't like ranch?
Disgusting. No, it's awful,
You have bad taste.
especially with that pizza. Ooh.
Oh, that would be great. Ranch is great with any pizza.
No. I'm getting the so it's a cheese sauce, but it's got to be a little spicy. It's got to add a little bit more,
Cheese spicy. Okay.
little spiciness to it. Add with the jalapeno you already got there. Yeah,
You lost me with the barbecue sauce.
you can eat it with tomato too. I've done that before.
No, no,
Mostly
no.
because
You said
it.
barbecue sauce on your pizza. This is what you
No,
built.
I'm just saying if you wanted to eat this, but you're not with the barbecue sauce, you could eat it still with the tomato sauce, and it's still very good, but it's not as good
I
as.
wonder what the fan base would say about this. Like the ones that are listening to still to this podcast. Like,
No,
would they?
basketball people, they left.
That's
Nobody's listening
true.
to this anymore.
Nobody, just me and you having a conversation with
I
each
told
other.
them to leave. They listened to me.
Uh, yeah.
Hope you didn't have any ads after that.
No, I don't. I don't read any ads. They're all just inserted in. There might be a post ad, but who cares? Who listens to that anyway? So, uh, that's not a premium spot to be in. Hey, after you listen to these guys ramble about a Pacers loss to Memphis for 50 minutes, you can hear this ad. You know, Indeed.com, baby. Well, anyway, so just to recap, your pizza is a barbecue pizza with pepperoni chicken, jalapenos, Roma tomatoes, bell peppers with spicy cheese sauce to dip it in. I've got a meat lovers without pepperoni because you stole it from me. I've got tomato sauce. We've got sausage, bacon, and ham, which I'm regretting my ham pick, by the way. Ricotta cheese and onions. So if I could replace one, I would replace ham. Is there one you would want to replace?
No, it's perfect.
No, it's perfect. Okay. I was like, I don't know. I mean, does red crushed pepper sound better than ham? Probably.
Like I was wondering if that counts as a topping too, because usually you just get it and then you
Yeah, it's
just
free. It's on the
like I
side with
would put on,
Parmesan.
yeah. Like I could replace Roma tomatoes with like Parmesan cheese or crushed red peppers. I'd put either of those on top of it as well.
Either way, you get more meat with mine if you're a meat lover and you don't like a lot of spicy food. I mean, that's the only thing is if you don't like spice, you might not like Derek's.
Yeah.
But at least you got the ranch to cool yours down if you do think mine's a little too spicy with the sausage. Ranch is it, baby. Ranch is go. Okay. Well, we got a barfer over here, so I got to let him get to bed before he has to call in for work tomorrow. So, Derek, thanks so much for joining. Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at on Blue Sky, on X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, ipacersblog.com. Like, just tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find my written work at ipacers.com. I'm tweeting, if you want to call it that, more often at Blue Sky now.
It's skeeting. It's skeeting.
No, I'm not. I'm not calling it that. I refuse.
That's what all the Survivor
Oh,
players are calling it. They're
yeah, I
skeeting.
don't care. I'll call it bleeding, but I'm not gonna call it the word from that song from when I was in like eighth grade. Just not doing it.
Skeet, skeet.
Yeah. Yeah, get low, get low. Yeah, okay. Where else? Twitter, you can still find me there at iPacers blog, just not posting as often, but still posting. It probably makes the account better, honestly. I'm just not saying everything that comes to my mind. So you can
Because
find me
you're too
there
busy
too.
skeeting about that.
YouTube, trying to put out more content there. I have not been doing my grades recently, but I got some ideas that are coming on YouTube hopefully soon. If you want to subscribe, that would be great. It's just at iPacers. You can find me pretty easily. Yeah, I think that's all of them. Yeah. Don't need no Facebook, no there. I have an
Threads.
Instagram, I don't use it. So yeah. No
Sound
threads.
like
Oh,
sound
I have a
like
thread,
Kristen
so I don't use
Airy.
it. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, there you go. Make sure you guys follow him on every platform that he's on at
Yeah.
iPacers, right?
Do it. All
iPacers
you
blog.
people still here?
Yeah. And leave us a comment section. Leave us a comment in the comment section below on YouTube and let us know which pizza you would like to be eating. Facci and I will be back later this week. I'm not sure if we'll have a podcast out for you tomorrow, but I'm assuming we will. Obviously, we'll be back for the game recap against the Raptors, and he will not be available to recap the Nets game because he will be in the building for that one. So chalk that one up as another loss for your Pacers. So we'll be able to talk with Facci tomorrow probably about something. So good to have Facci back. But anyway, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at PacersPodSTP. I'm at Alex Golden NBA, and we will talk to y'all then. Let's go Pacers.